care. But I understand the uncomfortableness that it creates for other folks, you know.
Yeah.
You know, they really were planning
It's
on,
just
I
that
wasn't
I
planning.
had a part in my hair last time.
Well, I wasn't,
And
yeah.
I didn't get to put my lipstick on.
And that's the whole
We're not,
thing.
and we're not trying, and I, you know, like I said, we open, anybody who walks in the room is welcome to sit in with us, so it's not like we're hiding something, we're not saying, oh, don't come in here, so I don't wanna do that, but I do understand where Kathy's coming from, I know, I don't know if there's other people who are uncomfortable, you may wanna switch around to the other side of the room, I don't know.
Well, the other reason why I'm not gonna go sit at the table is because I can only upload 15-minute increments. And so I have to turn it off and turn it on at the end of every approximately 15
Well,
minutes.
that's been changed too, but I don't wanna waste your time, Todd. but-
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't wanna rush through this, but I also, I mean, I have to be out of here by 7 o'clock, so.
Oh, we all have to do that, everybody.
Okay, so the third line then is consider developing a means to share equipment, cost of training, and even possibly staffing. Does anybody have any comments or concern with that?
I think it doesn't hurt to look into any of these
No.
things. Those are just,
It's just like with United Way, some of the bigger operations probably have some economies of scale that they could share with some of the smaller operations.
Right. Does anybody else have any comments? The last one on this.
Collaboration's a big thing,
Yeah.
What's that?
big word, collaboration. In fact, aren't you going for the local government grant, which is all part of collaboration too?
Yeah, we did submit a grant to the local government innovation fund to see if they would help us take the vision and do a countywide comp plan, since we don't have a comp plan in Portage County, countywide. So the last one on here is the library facility should develop, now, when I say the library facility, I'm not a librarian, and I don't think is anybody else here a librarian, for example? So what I'm saying here is library facilities should develop goals and objectives for the short-term and long-term time horizon to be sustainable. So basically, how are they gonna, you know, you mentioned Brimfield, for example, is no longer active. How are these libraries gonna support themselves, support the public in the short term as well as the long term? You know, how can they do that? So rather than me or us decide, well, they should do this and they should probably do that, let them set their own goals and parameters. Is what I'm saying.
Which is ultimately what we're doing here, because we can't really tell the libraries what to do. We can just tell them we think they're good ideas for the community.
Exactly, and because of community, when I looked for community facilities for other plans, I mean, these were the common themes that they had, so I just made them very generic, you know.
It's more like, you know, state the obvious almost in some respects.
In some respect, but the idea is, though, is right now, they're not doing these things, you know, so even though it's obvious, they're not doing it, so. Anyway, the next item is the police, fire, and emergency services. Similar to what we talked about with the libraries, develop a master inventory of the available resources within each of the emergency services based upon the type of service provider. So if you're a police department, what's important inventory to have, fire department, or other emergency service providers, but EMS or something like that. Does anybody have any comments on that? Did we change that? We said identify gaps, and the other one we said identify gaps or needs in service.
Doesn't the county have a grant for inventorying resources in the county or something?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
this is something we need to find out, because if there is, because we really, you need to start with
I think he
it.
submitted it, unless I've got the name mixed up. I'll find it.
What, LGIF, is that what you were looking at, something?
It was two, and I'll look it up.
Oh,
I'm
well,
still working on acronyms.
well, the LGIF grant is doing the comp plan, and that we would get data to go with this information. This information is pretty aloof. And
Because it almost seems like what you're talking about inventory would be the data you're looking for.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. The next one is coordinate available resources among local departments. And I don't know if we say anything like that. Consider, and then I guess we had evaluate models to share services, you know. So, and evaluate models to share services.
Don't they already do that?
I'm sorry?
Don't they already do that?
They do. I think they do coordinate quite a bit, but I think there's still some improvement.
I know sometimes if there's a big fire, they call in all the surrounding departments. They know who has the
They
big.
have mutual aid.
Yeah,
A lot of
mutual
them
aid.
have mutual aid with the neighboring fire departments, plus you have what, Crestwood, I think, has a combined fire district where they
Right.
actually were able to make better use of resources.
And I think the next one right below that kind of, you know, so let's say we don't have a pumper truck or whatever. And the next one kind of talks about, well, we do have a pumper truck. So like who's got it and who doesn't have it, and is it available to share or not share? Maybe a couple fire departments need something and they purchase it together kind of thing.
And that goes back to the voters though. That's, because we've been
Right.
through that.
Yeah.
Can I take a minute or two? Because I was on the committee, there was a committee for this, and John Mason, you know, passed along, there was a lot of, we did have some discussion on this too, and I just, for, maybe for the benefit of you guys here, you know, when you talk about all of the stuff, everything is funded, it's funded through different streams, it's a matter of what do we have. You mentioned the fire district, and how many fire districts, we actually had, how many fire departments, police departments, dispatch centers, PSAP centers, fire districts, and things of that nature, and that kind of all helps, but, and like Kathy was saying, when you list down everything you have, then it's a matter of, okay, who's getting the funding, and Steve mentioned different funding streams in different areas, and that's part of the whole thing, where it sounds really, really complex, but you can really put, you know, names to it and dollars to it, and what's granted, you know, everything's tax dollars to get right down to it, but where's the tax dollar come from, go to? And that's what's really interesting, is if you take everything that happened in Portage County, and you hear about duplicate services and stuff like that, well, how can duplicate services actually benefit other things? And like, Portage, PMHA, is that, as opposed, and you hear about the other ones too, it's a matter of, it's interesting because like a Portage County, like a county housing district, aren't there so many in each state? Like I know there are 88 counties.
Pretty much one
And
per
we've got
county.
like 51 solid waste districts and 628 school districts. In Portage County, we've got 18 townships and 4 cities and 6 villages. And then they all kind of intermix, but then, you know, it's almost like that little plates of stuff all together here too. And I think, isn't that kind of what you're trying to do when you say you sewing the quilt together, is find out what you have? And it's people who are gonna bring all this stuff over.
When she mentions the quilt, one of the things when we first did this was a lot of these things are tied together. But, so there's nothing, not one thing really stands by itself. Everything is kind of touching each one of these different topics touch one another. So we call it the you know, mending the quilt together, so that we're kind of, you know, looking at this as a whole county of services rather than just one issue at a time. And there's sometimes some of those services, like, you know, I believe the social services and housing, I mean, those are kind of related, yet they could be different, but they're kind of related. So we kind of merge those together. Land use and housing are kind of related, but they're different. Parks and you know, recreation is related, but they're different from natural resources. Infrastructure, water, sewer is kind of related to transportation, yet they're different. And so, and not one thing stands by itself. They're all kind of together. And that's the quilt concept that Don was talking about.
My personal feeling is because what we've seen happening in some of the cities and surrounding larger metropolitan areas is where they're starting to charge people when they come out on an emergency call, the police, the fire, and the way I understand is, well, the reason I would assume is because they're either overstaffed or they've overspent the funding that they do receive. So, and we all know that we're still in some kind of a financial, economic crisis in this country. A lot of people are out of work. When they're not working, they're not paying taxes. That's a lack of revenue. You know, so those are all things that should be taken into consideration when you're talking about the fire and the police, because we don't want to see them charging someone for coming out and putting out a fire, and that is happening in cities.
Not in Portage County, though.
No, not in Portage County.
Not in Portage County. And
Not
one of the
yet.
well, now, hang on a second.
Yeah.
One of the most important things is to know what you have.
Right.
What's available.
Right.
What's it cost, and how do you make this stuff work? And that's what's trying to happen right here, too.
Right.
Okay, and I think that's what's really, because I don't remember how many people started out with this whole thing, but they broke down into little things like that, too. And it's very important to say, what are we doing? You know, do you know how much we're spending? Do you know who builds? Do you know who doesn't build from a fire department standpoint? Mutual aid is something
Right.
that's been in place for years, and that's how you handle it. But I think what's interesting here is how are we as people going to move everything forward?
And prevent them from charging.
Well, I think you need to know your neighbor too, because I know Palmyra had issues with a lot of the calls relating to like life call. They were being called out on things they probably shouldn't, had they had a neighbor they could talk to and communicate with, or a family member that's close by. And the fire department was getting pulled in more often than it should, and it was just dragging on the resources. So I think maybe we could put something in here that, you know, that you need to build the community and be, you know, be a little bit of brother's keeper here too.
And are you from Manaway? The
No,
Manaway
no,
area? Well,
no.
the Manaway Shells Fire District, which is a district of 2 townships and 1 village, and what they have done is they actually are key holders for some people. Okay, and this is when you get to know your neighbor, your people take care of people, and a lot of times expense, this way you don't have to pay somebody to do it, you know, people are taking care of people, but that's an interesting kind of concept that's real important here, because if you get right down to it, it's people who pay the taxes, people who have the services, so it's gonna be people who are, we're gonna kind of come up with the I don't wanna say the solutions, but then you've got people who are in different areas handling different things, so it's kinda like, you know, we're not all bad guys, we're all good guys, what are we gonna do to do it? But then I think it's important to have the proper facility in which to do it too. And I know that's one thing, I think, there's a whole lot that needs to be there, so it's, are you looking to expand this thing again? Or
Yeah,
just
we can
looking
add to it, like based on what he mentioned was, this may not be exactly worded the way you'd want it to be, but I had to consider the cost of services and evaluate opportunities to limit user/service fees. And then maybe it could be worded better than that.
Yeah, now see, where he's really good at is taking what you know, because
Sure.
he's got the background in the planning in urban as well as,
City
what's-
regional planning, yeah.
yeah, and it's a matter of knowing all the different things that are out there and just kind of connecting the dots and putting it together and putting it in the format that's readable, easy, and makes sense to all of us, right?
Yeah.
You
But I mean,
touched on something when I look up duplication. It seems like to me there's a lot of duplication in here. And a lot of these things are already being done.
Like, of duplication,
Of services.
okay, and sometimes what it amounts to is, let me just give you my purple people thing. Maybe the federal government through, and I don't have all the different agencies, right, is it the Department of Agriculture that handles food?
Yeah.
maybe?
Mhm.
Okay, they have food, feed purple people. Anybody wants to feed purple people with this money, you can get it, you can, this is simplified, okay? And let's say that I wanna feed purple people and get some of that money, okay? You're not having duplication of services as much as maybe the coordination is not all together. But sometimes you do have duplication. So let's say I wanna feed purple people, let's say Kathy wants to feed purple people. We apply to, whichever agency says, I wanna feed purple people, here's my plan, here's how much I'm gonna spend, here's how many people I'm gonna feed. And then the government, through the process, says, okay, we're gonna give you X number of dollars to feed purple people.
Now, all of this is gonna require more federal funds, right?
Ideally,
Not
you want,
necessarily.
No, it's not.
right,
It's not.
ideally, and he's right on that, because, it's a matter
In
of.
fact, aren't most of what we've been talking about here at libraries, I don't know, but I thought fire, police, and emergency is primarily funded by local levies, and
Yes,
so,
Well, there might be some state grants and
With-
matching funds.
not
in there,
grants,
too.
but not very much out of Washington,
No.
except for the occasional
yeah,
token program to make it look like they're doing something, but
right.
Well, you like to avoid, you like to avoid federal funding as much as possible, because it always comes with strings attached, and then they still want to start telling you how to run your
When do you-
business.
but anybody's funding, if you're not paying for yourself, comes with strings attached.
Right.
And I think a better way to look at it sometimes is, you know, when I said purple people,
Okay.
this is what you get your money for.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's keep moving. So then the next thing I had was, and this is again probably a good thing for police and fire, is consider developing means to share equipment, cost of training, and even possibly staffing. I'm not sure exactly how that would work, but let them determine how that would work. But it seems like, you know, there's a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Scales, economies of scale, when you have training, if you have a bunch of officers, a bunch of firefighters that need to be trained in something.
They already do that.
Yeah, and that's great, so, make sure that, and those are examples too, so. And then the last thing I had for this section was emergency service providers should develop goals and objectives for the short and long-term time horizons to be sustainable. And I guess this also goes back to that being cost-effective, so that they aren't asking for levies and they aren't having to bill people who are getting a call, call their house for a fire or something like that, they're getting hit with a big expense to do that. I mean, they have to pay for it somehow, but I understand the concern is that, we kind of expect those services to be there, and we don't want to get hit with a big bill. At the same time, we're going with a trauma or a tragedy or something like that. So does anybody have any changes or suggestions on that?
Well, I just have a question about that, I guess. Okay, most of our emergency service providers come from our township or our city.
Mhm.
So, what would be the objective for the short term to the long term to make them sustainable? You
Well,
still continue to have levies.
Maybe through the equipment sharing, if they can be more cost effective or cost efficient, that would extend out their need or lack thereof of funding. So that's where we're trying to, have them think outside the box maybe. I mean, like you said, a lot of the stuff's already going on, but this is, keep thinking how to do better and be more efficient.
I did tell you, we had a fire in our neighborhood a couple of years ago. And there must have been 4 or 5 townships,
Mhm.
trucks, of different types, pumpers, whatnot, that came to that fire, police, whatever. So there is really some type of a major plan that they've got.
Mhm.
So we're a township. And,
I live in a township too, and our neighbors 2 doors down had a fire, and same thing, we had 5 different jurisdictions respond to it.
yeah,
Actually, they respond based on what the call is. And it's, within townships, there's no water supply, you can't hook onto it, so what you need are pumpers to go to hydrants, tankers to get loaded up, go to the site and dump in the portable pool, which is something that that was an idea that came up in Portage County with those fire departments, and it's really kind of cool. These guys, once they get going, can, whether they draw from a river, a lake, or off of a hydrant, it's amazing how fast they can get a continuous supply of water going. So we've got lots of things that are already there, and how do we make it better for everybody?
they also, I'm sorry, they also hook onto each other's trucks to get more pressure.
Yeah.
And we do have hydrants out there that they hook into, but you've got to have pressure and continuous and lots of things, lots of different chemical. One time we had an electrical fire, you have to get people there to turn off the electricity until they could even begin to pump water. So they've got a real plan. At least I believe our township does. They're hooked into, I think, like Kenton.
And one of the things I said when we first started too, and I probably should say it again, is I don't mean any disrespect to the police or fire or emergency service people who are already doing these things. I don't have that background, so I just, looking at what other people have done, I just kind of outline kind of like what other people generically have said. So I think they do a terrific job, and we're just looking at opportunities to see if there's even more they can do if possible. So. Is there any other comments on that one? We can move to public health, which is interesting because of the levy problems they've had in the past. But public health should collaborate with local and regional health departments and coordinate services, because I believe not only does the county have a health department, but Ravenna City and the City of Kent have health departments, and I don't know if they coordinate, kind of like what we talked about with coordinating outside the county too, because I think if we had an outbreak of some sort of infectious disease, that's gonna cross boundaries for sure, kind of thing. So I thought we should, they should, collaborate and coordinate services, and I think, when I say local and regional, outside county area. The next one was, if there's no other comments or questions on that one, the next one was public education awareness of the health department services essential for their utilization and perceived value. I'm assuming, I understand that, the levies haven't passed since the 50s or something like that, and a lot of people associate the health department primarily with the septic tank program, but they do more than septic tanks. I mean, they do help children with different, immunizations and things like that. So it's kind of important. Like when we had, when H1N5 was out there, that was the bird flu a few years ago, there was concern that if that ever went viral, what would we do? And really, there's not a lot you can do in certain cases, but having a well facilitated health department would make me feel more comfortable than not having anything at all, you know, so. I don't know if anybody has any comments on that, or any discussion on that?
Do you know if the College of Public Health at Kent State is working with the local health departments on anything right now? Any major
Yes.
initiatives?
Yeah, they are working together, I believe.
And that, I've heard that too, basically from what I read out of the paper, where Ravenna's looking to merge with Portage County, but I guess Kent went ahead and hired somebody, and while the Kent State, Portage, Public Health.
College of Public Health?
That's really nice and wonderful, and, Kent State, I hope will realize to expand out to the other health districts, and with the health district we have now, you figure that takes up 2 cities and 18 townships and 6 villages, and that's, those people are pointed that way, so, I think there needs to be a lot of talking going on, because Aurora passes it every year, and I think it's a good thing.
Well, I think it's important, the awareness piece, that is missing. There's not been a good, maybe if there is some kind of coordination with the university, could bring in ways to make it more public.
And with the septic tank program, I know that it's expensive to replace. I don't have a septic tank, so I don't really know myself exactly what it costs, but the septic tanks are pretty expensive, and if there's a way to assist people who need help replacing their tanks that are failing, maybe that would make them, that assistance would maybe help those who are concerned about having the health department come and visit them and say, oh, you have to put a $20,000 or $15,000 septic tank in your yard, and you're like, what? I know, there's probably not a person, I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I know if I got a $15,000 bill one day, it wouldn't work for me very well.
Well, we had our whole neighborhood, all 60 people this past summer were told that our septic systems were failed, but we have yet to see any testing that any effluent goes into the creek. We're all tied together.
Mhm.
So, believe me, it is a scary thing right now.
Yeah.
60 people, a lot of elderly.
Yeah,
Single family, young family.
yeah. That's in Murfield, near Howe Road?
We're working with health department and Jeff Lonsrick and
Yeah, they're bringing water lines, sewer lines?
water. We've asked for water and sewer if we're gonna do the 2. That whole Howe Road area, because of Rubbermaid,
Mhm.
up the hill is having sewer put in also behind the Rubbermaid.
Yeah. The guy who, the Rhodes family is doing that, what is that?
Supposed to be
Estes Drive?
Estes,
Yeah,
but ours isn't Estes.
no,
They're working on whether they're gonna have to put a pumping station there,
I think the
whether
Rhodes,
it's a fall.
the Rhodes family, there was a private, Estes was a private drive south of Howe, and I guess they're honoring their obligation to those folks, which is very nice of them. They surely didn't have to do that, but they're doing
I
it.
think there's about 20 people there. I've talked with Dick Metzner.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the other one we haven't really made any, it's been a standard statement here, consider developing means to share equipment costs and staffing. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or concerns, seems to make sense. And then the last one also is health providers should develop goals and objectives for short and long-term time horizons to be sustainable. And I don't know if anybody has any comments. I added on the second one with the public awareness of health departments is essential for their utilization perceived value, to also work with KSU College of Public Health. I added that on there. Is there any comments or questions? No? The last one is schools. And I'm telling you, schools are awesome because they've got so much stuff going on, and yet we as the taxpayers don't really see that. It's just for the kids. And I understand there's a time for the kids just to be there, and I want to keep the kids separated from adults. I understand that. But the first one is inventory of the available resources within the school systems. And I would probably include not only their resources for students, but also potential community access.
You're talking about the fields and.
Which is prime, i.e. Ball fields,
Yeah.
or sports fields. You know,
Some of those, you know, I know it's hard, but there could be some way to create community centers there too. You know, instead of having how we have our community centers in there. I mean, a school is if we can find ways to collaborate or make that possible for them, they're scattered throughout the community, so.
do we have like a, and then ask a silly question, in the city of Ravenna, for example, do we have like a community playhouse kind of place where we do shows and stuff like that? Because that new high school has a fantastic stage.
I know, that's what I'm saying, there's just, the resources are, they're like, say,
That's
they're
about it.
not extended to the community, and that would, I mean, we need to create, if we're gonna create community, we need to utilize whatever resources we have, which are limited, but they're here, and they're not coordinated, and that's, I think, this whole thing, is trying to find ways to use, because you don't have to go build a new community center, we have them, we just have to find a way to get access and utilize it. But you're right about the school, that could be, and that could be a moneymaker, you know, that could be split, I mean, there's ways to share.
You can make revenue for the school.
Revenue, yeah.
And the way they have the rollout stage at Ravenna, that's part of the OSFC, which is school facilities. Part of that, they call them, I can't remember what they call it, some kind of auditorium that other schools can maybe get with communities putting into that. And it's, and also schools, I think, need to look for ways to generate more revenue too, whether it's getting like some.
Well, that's what I'm saying, there's a lot.
Some schools have brought in, like restaurants or, like, I know, well, let's say like University Hospitals up in Manaway. I think that'd be a great partner for Crestwood. You know, and you have to find out what's in each community and kind of go from there. But, you know, that way, think about using schools 24/7 to generate money.
I'm not saying I want to, you have the school, because again, I do believe that the students should have, you know, the access to their schools. And use that without having the deal with strange adults and anywhere close to them. I think that they should become, adults and students should be separated completely. But you know, but I'm saying Saturdays and Sundays, or Saturdays could mean, not Sundays, Saturdays and summer months would be a great time to utilize those school facilities when they're not being used, you know, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, who's gonna promote that? Do you think the schools should promote that? Here's because the Haymaker Farm Market, not this last winter, but the winter before, they actually used Kent Roosevelt High School to perform the farm market. And I think all they had to do was compensate them for cleanup, and they were fine with it being open on Saturday mornings for the farm market.
So I think we just need to come up, that we need to get, like I said, think outside the box of some ways to bring community together, utilize the resources. I don't think these barriers are huge.
Yeah.
And I think it's case by case. Maybe there's something going on, maybe there's some policies that the school board doesn't want to allow that kind of interaction, that's fine.
I mean, I'm thinking unless
Parks and
there's-
Rec have summer programs, that if like there was a drama program, they could use the stage.
Wouldn't that be
something
great?
like that.
Or a local theater group, you know, start a local theater group that, you know, and
Aurora
have events.
Aurora has a community theater, and so does Garrettsville.
But I mean, all this stuff takes a driver. The reason why Haymaker was at Kent Roosevelt is because there was a need and there was people doing research and they came up with a solution, which I think is gonna happen anyhow. Now, if we want it to happen more often, is there really some way we can make that happen more often? I don't know.
And
Well, it
so-
doesn't happen unless we start talking about it and thinking of ways to do it.
Well, there's people that are doing it now, though, is what I'm
Right.
saying. So it's happening now. Can we make it happen more? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's case by case and, you
Yeah.
know, what the issue is, you know, what we're trying to do.
I think what some of the issues with the schools are is that their insurance, will it
Yeah.
cover? And I know that, like St. Joe's in Manaway, they have had the Oxrose Fair there for years now. That was a school at one time. I don't believe they have a school there anymore, but they do the parking at the high school and people walk up there. And I don't know what kind of arrangement they have with Crestwood School Systems. I know that in Solon, they have the Solon Family Days, and they actually hold the fair right at the school grounds, basically. But it's probably every individual school system deals with that on a different basis according to what their whatever company insures the school, and then whoever would be holding an event or whatever there has to either buck up some insurance money or.
And that makes sense.
Liability insurance.
Yeah.
Liability insurance is really important. Now, one of the things we could think about too is if, you know, like, you know, Kathy mentioned using the school's facilities versus creating your own community center. Well, that's a big savings to a city or a township. I don't have to build my own community center at all. If I can use the school and then just pay maybe the difference between what the school already is paying for insurance, that might be an economical way to utilize that without having to create a whole nother community center with a whole nother set of insurance requirements, you know? So you'd have to do insurance anyway on a
Correct.
community center.
Yep.
So, okay. Does anybody have any comments on that first one? The second one was coordinate resources among local schools, surrounding school systems, mentioned those, local colleges, universities, and, colleges and universities, KSU, Akron U, Hiram College, Mount Union, Stark State, Neomed, and Fortis. And so that was just kind of like, again, I'm a planner and I like to think bigger picture and get people to talk to each other. I don't say they're going to, but I'd like to think that they could talk to each other. One of the things here too that I probably, I haven't decided how I want to word this, but it's the fourth one down is to work with higher education providers to also provide technical training like Maplewood and the business community for career opportunities. So the idea is here is to get the schools they're trying to graduate kids to be in the workforce. Some aren't going to college, so that's Maplewood and technical schools. And then also, we're working with the businesses and the colleges to, so when kids graduate, they aren't moving to other states like I had to do when I first graduated from school, college, and I worked out of state. And it'd be great to keep some of our local kids local and working here rather than having them leave. So those two things there are what I'm trying to get to as far as how I wording that. And I'm sure we could word that better.
Well, that really is kind of the way things are going now too, is getting the businesses more, internships and whatever, so that the businesses get the training they need instead of what we decide we're gonna do and throw them out there, hope it works. Especially maybe in some of the more technical schools.
So on the second one then, coordinate resources among local schools, surrounding school systems, et cetera, local college, universities, and I listed all those. Does anybody want to make any comments on how that sentence should read or should read differently?
Kent State is in, in Geauga, they're in Summit County, and I guess, the main campus is here, it's in here. And also with Neomed has got a new partnership with Cleveland State, I think.
I think they partnered a few years ago, yeah.
Okay, and then just with Hiram on the students, they got the new high school down there too.
I think the Neomed example points to that there is a risk to Portage County for some of this because they were, from what I've understood, decently close to being potentially relocated to Cleveland. So sometimes partnering with some of these neighboring counties could wind up, jeopardizing some of the resources we do have. I'm not saying those discussions shouldn't be had, but Portage County representatives should go in and not afraid to guard the home turf as well.
Right, and I'm glad to see all the investment being done by Neomed because I'm assuming that means they're making the commitment to stay local.
Yeah, they are.
So
And
that's
I think they opened they are either opening or opened or did something in Cleveland, as like a branch campus type of thing or whatever, but that wasn't the original discussion, so.
Yeah, the original discussion was the whole thing to Cleveland, I believe, yeah.
They were
When was
actually
that?
considering moving Neomed to Cleveland.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. But Kent, Akron, and Youngstown, the original schools that started Neomed or Neo-UConn said no way, because that was too far and that was really just robbing it right to Cleveland State or Cleveland area.
It looks like they're pretty committed now with all the building going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They look very
They're
good.
partnering also with local schools.
Right.
And I know Field's got students there, I think they partnered big with Woodstown, I think that's how it
That's
started.
what you wanna see, is that.
And students are going there who are serious medical students.
Which is a great resource, huge. It's a medical school. I mean, that's the one thing that it's hard to look at and say, oh, that's a real medical school, and it's growing and it's gaining reputation, and it could be, it's a real jewel to this county, really, and I don't think many of us look at it that way. We just like, you know, but it's a valuable resource. So again, you know, consider developing means to share resource, you know, share equipment, training, staffing, etc. That was kind of similar to all the others. And then the other one was the one I was talking about with the aftermarket, you know, getting schools prepared for college, getting schools prepared for work, you know. So schools should continue to work closely with higher education providers, but also with technical training, like, you know, I just identified Maplewood as one of the examples, and the business community for career opportunities.
That's not a good one. Schools don't like to lose their students. And I know I had one daughter graduate from the public school and one graduate from Maplewood. And I have to say that the one from Maplewood, I feel got the best education to go into the workforce. And although the other one has a good education, they both are have college, but I'm just saying that the Maplewood trained the other one that she got a job immediately in the technical field. And I don't know that the schools invest like ours used to when I was going, where you could take both college prep and you could take a business. I'm not sure they do that, but I know that when we went in to talk to them about my daughter going to Maplewood, it was told to me that only bad kids go there. Yeah, and we went to visit it and found out they had a wonderful computer technical area that, and they graduate kids from there with good skills. I think all of their mechanics get hired, but I'm gonna tell you, I don't think that there are a lot of schools who really like losing their students because they take the funds with them from the school.
That's true. Well, it is what it is, though.
Not all.
I know.
You can't force people to go to college, you know, and things
No.
like that. The other thing too, and I know I didn't articulate this very well, and I know not everybody's happy with this word either, but you know, the fracking. When there is such a shortage of welders right now, and I believe Fortis, they said that back in 2007, 2008, they only had 5 people in their welding program. They were going to cut the whole thing. Now I think they graduated 60 this last time. And the business community wants more and more, and they can't you know, spit them out fast enough. I don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now after they do all the pipelines and stuff. After there's going to be an overabundance of welders. But right now, there's a super big need for welders, and that's something the business community needs to let people know that, hey, we're looking for this kind of a worker. You know, it's something that would interest you or anybody else. You know, and get them focused on those training attributes so that they can have a job basically right out of high school, or you know,
Well,
take some
a lot of
time.
applications too, I mean, it's not just for fracking, I mean.
No, well, sure, no, absolutely.
It creates a career track too.
We were at Mac, you know, we were on Leadership Portage County Business Day, and we went to Mac Trailer there in Kent, and they were showing, you know, they weren't welding pipelines, they were putting together tanker trucks and things like that, which was pretty neat to see them do that, welding them together. And they said they had 120 employees right now, and they wanted to expand to 210 employees by July, and you know, part of that is there is the workers coming, you know, the students coming out of these different programs. They have to wait for them to graduate.
To read the paper, it sounds like we have far more college graduates than we really need, and a heck of a lot less people who can do welding and that type of thing than the market calls for. And I know when I go to hire
I do think we have to be
maintenance,
nimble with that because.
it's very difficult to get, most of my applicants, like for maintenance positions, are 50 and older, which is fine, but you know, that I have such a scarcity of younger people, because that's wages frankly call for somebody who's not trying to support a family, is you know, it's hard. I mean, and I don't know, I mean, people should go into whatever field they want to go in and that type of thing, or try to, but boy, the results we see with college graduation and what they wind up going into and trying to pay off student loans versus some of the wage rates that some of these folks
Yeah,
who are
some
doing
of the
welding.
kids that just want
are
to
doing
join the
pretty
trades
good.
are a lot better right now.
Well, I usually
Yeah.
suggest to kids, when I talk to children or students who are going to college, is that you need 2 things. You need a college degree, but you need a trade. When the college degree fails you, you use the trade. And I know both of my girls, my one girl owns a framing shop of her own, and she has a very good job of her own. My other daughter is studying to be, well, a jeweler or whatever, and she makes her own jewelry and sells it. There, you need both in the economy that's up and down. You need both, and that's where I think our schools fail. I think our schools want to push the kids toward college all the time, most of it, and they forget you've got a need for
Right.
other things.
And you don't need that kind of debt when you can't get it, the kind of job that will, you know, accommodate that
I
kind of
don't,
debt.
does Maplewood accommodate all the students that wish to go there? I don't know that.
No,
They don't.
no.
They have a limited amount.
Mhm. And I'm just speaking from Crestwood, I know that, I don't know all the exact stuff, I think that, you have to, there's some kind of thing where you apply to go to Maplewood.
Yes. You do apply.
Okay.
A lot of trained people right now who can't find jobs.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I know a lot of college graduates who spent 4 years, took out student loans, have big
That's where the business
bills.
community needs to get more involved, because they know what they need.
They know what they need, yeah.
You gotta have that communication, because, you know,
What-
they can be involved in the training as well.
Yeah, one of the things that Kent State has done, I think, is a smart thing. They require internships and experiential training.
Experiential
Learning,
learning.
whatever. They're gonna do something in your field of
Yeah.
learning that you're trying to do, or you get an internship. And I think what's great about that is they learn what is really like in the business world. And I think it also creates the opportunity that if an employer finds a great person working whether it's accounting or marketing or whatever they're doing, and wants to keep them, there may be an opportunity for them to keep them here local. So I like that. I like that opportunity that they may have, you know. So I hope that
Well,
program turned out well.
that needs to be,
But the businesses do need to kind of let people know what kind of jobs they're looking for.
well, they kind of
because-
need to step up to the plate and be part of the learning curves as well.
Get to the advisors in the high school, so that the high school advisors aren't sending everybody to college. Work on the 2+2. You know, you get your 2 years,
And then get
so
some
you get your feet
experience.
wet,
Yeah.
and then
+2.
So that is a good way. 'Cause
That's what we told our girls, 2 years in the field, when we wanted to be art, 2 years. If you don't get a job in that field, we don't go any more than 2 years. We find another avenue.
Mm.
So, you have to be careful, you've got a lot
The
of
old
kids.
formula doesn't work like it used to.
No, you have a lot of kids who are graduating to be in literature or things like that, where are they gonna use it at this point? You're gonna have to move, or
Well,
it's a
they're all
special.
going back to school and getting their masters and getting more debt, so
Yeah,
that's what we've done.
So colleges aren't gonna turn them away?
No,
There's
no,
money
colleges
coming.
well, they become 6-year programs,
Yeah.
not, or 5-year programs.
A lot of kids don't know what they wanna do when they graduate from high school.
That's very true.
I had a part-time job
Or when they graduate
in
from
the
college.
field that I wanted to go into when I was 17 in high school, and put 47 years into it.
Then we've got schools too that are frightening to me. One of my friends who teaches said that you can almost buy a degree in nursing. And some of these, and I won't say Fortis, I don't know Fortis, and a technical school like that.
Well, you have to be careful about the
Yes, you
quality
do.
of education.
We have to be careful about where we do send our kids. That's why I was thinking, if Maplewood doesn't accommodate all the students, maybe we need another technical school in Portage County. Because I would say more than half of our students are not college prep,
Right.
and you see that more and more.
Well, I think when you're looking at your resources, you are evaluating
Yeah.
what these universities
Yeah.
are turning.
But that's a good point, though. I mean, if Maplewood can't handle it all, then where are those people going?
Is there a community and technical college component at Kent State University for people who are not necessarily looking for a four-year degree like they have at the University of Akron?
Those kids are graduating from high school with poor grades and no skills. That's what's happening. They're graduating with poor skills, poor grades, because maybe they don't have the college mentality to take the calculus and the further physics and
Right.
whatnot, so they're graduating, and they're very frustrated. I have a neighbor boy like that, and not sure they're gonna even be able to get him into Maplewood. It's not right. Don't get me on the education.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Portage County actually has access to two technical schools, because the Kent School District
Yeah.
is with the other one, and technical colleges are all, or technical schools are all designated by the state. And actually Maplewood has a very, very good grading background, whatever, in it.
Yes, they do, but we don't have enough of it.
Well, is there any other comments on that? What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go back and make all the changes, I'm gonna get rid of the whom, cost, and time, and just leave it as to what the things are. Try to pretty it up, if you will, to give it some life, rather than this blank sheet, basically black and white sheet. So I'd like to meet before the end of April, though, so that we can kind of wrap this up and move on to our next phase, which would be hopefully getting that grant for a comp plan or finding another resource if we can. So, is there a date anybody wants to throw out?
May I just ask about your grant? What is that for? You had explained that Portage County did not pay the $69,000 to join
Oh,
the
that's different.
NEOSCC.
Yeah, that's a different grant. There's a grant called the Local Government Innovation Fund by the state of Ohio. And that is for innovative concepts and ideas. And the purpose of that grant is to promote, listen to all these things that we're talking about doing, promote collaboration, evaluate efficiencies and being more cost effective. It's to basically to improve services. It is also to, they'd like to see, like, the grant for planning is up to $100,000. They would like to see some sort of return on that investment, so that they're not spending $100,000 and getting like $80,000 back on it. They would like to see a greater return on that. So there's that, and then the big kicker is if it can actually help with job creation. So we wrote a grant. We combined with AMATS, which is the Akron Metropolitan Area Transit Study. And we also combined with Portage Park District, the county engineer, and Portage Development on that grant. So they're collaborating, but then there's, City of Kent, City of Ravenna, City of Streetsboro, they're all participating, but we're not paying them any money for their services. In fact, several of them are giving back in-kind service towards the project. Our agency, Regional Planning, will be giving back time towards this grant. And then, basically, we applied for it a couple weeks ago. We'll find out in June whether we get it. It'll be awarded in July, and it's 2 years from July 1, basically 2 years after that, so we'll have till July 15th to complete a grant. Again, as you all know, the countywide, I mentioned this last meeting anyway, most of you were there. The idea is to do a countywide plan. One never existed. It's not to tell local governments how to run their township or their village or their city, but to give the bigger picture of what's going on out there and to foster those cooperative, collaborative opportunities wherever possible. And then we also want to celebrate those successes too. We talked about the Oscar-style party that we want to do to tell people what's been done and what's been worked on, so that make it a fun process, not so that we do a comp plan, spend $100,000 of the state's money, and then put it on a bookshelf somewhere, and then pick it up 5 years later and say, wow, that's great, but we never did anything with it. Like many of these comprehensive plans have been done in the past, so we want to kind of keep it alive and moving forward.
So is the biggest thing then, job creation? Is that?
No, it's one of the key factors. I think they would like to see job creation. Now, the Portage Development Board is gonna work with us on that, and they're gonna be working on, like, for example, working with schools is one of the things that they would want to work with as far as bringing businesses to the schools to talk about opportunities there. Other things would be related to like land use, transportation, water and sewer service. All those things are alive, are required for business to operate. You have to have water and sewer pretty much to have a major business. So there's a lot of different things that they would be related to. One of those things would probably be, why come to Portage County as a business, and why would you want to bring your business here to create jobs in Portage County? So that they would also be looking at marketing strategy as well. So that would all be part of the comp plan.
What was it the last meeting, you decided not to go forward with anything in social services?
No, we did.
Oh,
We
okay.
did. No, we discussed that last meeting.
Oh, okay. I wasn't there, I mean, what,
Oh, I'll get everybody the
Okay.
revised write-ups on that.
okay.
I didn't cross that out to say we weren't doing it anymore. I crossed it out because we weren't discussing it tonight.
Gotcha.
Is there an actual rough draft of the comprehensive plan that you're trying to come up with available to read?
A comprehensive, no, there's no comprehensive plan.
Right, yeah,
So, yeah,
you're working on making one.
we will be, we haven't started working on making one. Really, this is, what the grant is basically taking these vision concepts as part of the goals and objective setting for the comprehensive plan. So that's what these ideas would try to be worked into the comprehensive plan.
And what's your target for trying to get some kind of a draft for that together?
Well, okay, as far as this goes, the goals of the vision plan, I wanna get something out by the end of, before the end of April, for us to look at what we're on, the whole thing, not just pieces, parts. And then we'll be done with that, more or less, for the time being. But the comp plan, as I mentioned in the grant, we won't really do anything with it until we find out about the grant in June. So.
Would that involve this group then, or once the
Yeah,
vision's done, it's going to another stage?
The comprehensive plan should always involve community and public input.
Okay.
So it's not like we would disband this group, we'd probably.
Would it be renamed or be a different, or?
Yeah, it'd probably be a similar process. We would probably, the big difference between what we're doing here and the comp plan is we would provide the data that goes with it. One of the things you wanna do is like, where are we today, so we know if we've made progress, So that's one of the big things. And then the other thing is too, there's completion times and costs involved and who's doing what kind of thing. So we kind of need to identify all that as well in the comprehensive plan. I'm working with Streetsboro right now on their master plan review, and for example, they don't want the times and costs down because they figure that the city council will decide, how much they want to spend and when they want it done. So who knows, maybe time and cost won't be put on the thing because each community will decide for themselves when they want to do it, if they want to do it even at all. So.
I have another question. The last meeting you had mentioned that you needed to get this completed by the end of May, I think, in order to turn this into the NEOSDC.
Right.
Is
right.
that your other plan?
Our plan is to not let the NEOSCC come in and tell Portage County what they want us to be. So we're gonna say, this is the vision that we would like you to move forward with, which is probably gonna be more than what they want. They're probably thinking, even flying at a higher level than we're at, and basically, but for the most part, from what I've seen of the NEOSCC, and when they talk about Portage County, they like Portage County to be rural. And I don't think that being solely rural is going to allow us to have the resources we need to continue to educate our kids, to have a place in the fire department, to have the services that we've grown accustomed to. We have to have some growth in places where it's appropriate to exist. I know many of the communities, when I say appropriate, many of the communities have expressed to me that they would like to stay rural, and that's fine with them. And that's fine too. I mean, that's what they want. Each community decides for themselves how they want to be. This mission of this comp plan is not to tell people that they have to be something that they want to be. So, that's about it. As direct as I can be with that.
I know I attended the Fair Housing under the NEOSCC the other day, and I do not believe that they ever, in my opinion, identified the impediments to housing other than the fact that the more affluent have moved away from the city and left the poor and to the city and that the city doesn't have the facilities, the monies. I didn't get a lot out of that meeting. To me, it was a lot of facts and figures, and I feel like the impediments were those of us who have moved out to the suburbs.
Well, okay,
And that will be forced to move out
and
there.
I'm probably gonna be inappropriate here, but you know, to me, the NEUSCC has failed in two things. One is the fear of crime, and the other is the school district in the city of Cleveland or in Akron. They have to address those perceptions before you're gonna get people to wanna live there. And they're not addressing that in their study at all. And I think that's one of the big flaws with their project, and that bothers me because you can't ignore it. It's just like we're trying to think about all these things. They're not focusing on some of the bigger picture issues of why people live where they live. They live because we like to live, we feel safe in our communities, we enjoy being in our communities, and people are leaving because I think, you know, and this is just Todd spouting up, not representing this group, but you know, the reality of it is people don't feel safe, and that's why they're leaving. And until you address that, you're not going to get them to move back. No matter how much fair housing you throw at them, you know, they're not going to move back. So. And fair housing, by the way, is just the ability to afford, not even afford, it's your ability to live in where you want to live and that you can afford to live in. And so when you say throw money at it, you can build housing for them, that doesn't mean they'll still live there.
They feel safe.
Until they feel safe or they feel that their kids are going to get a good education there, you know?
Right.
Well, we can't all move back to the city, but they could eventually. This is a project all over the United States, this NEOSCC, not NEOSCC, it's all different names. But it seems like they've got the same words like vision, sustainability, and when you follow some of this, you know, the land, there'll be places you'll never be able to go again because these are environmentally used for the animals, the habitat, whatever is there. And this is a little scary for me to see us go under NEOSCC because if you go out there and read more about it, it's not just a coincidence that the NEOSCC is just our little 12 counties because it's all over Ohio per se, and it's all over the United States where this is a collaboration, so.
Well, you know, the way I look at it, ultimately, I'm planning for working for a regional planning commission, I'm planning for Portage County, I'm not planning for the region. I understand we have to collaborate with the region, but for the most part, I only care about what people in Portage County want.
Well, it gets to the point where if you don't have the funds to pave the roads and whatnot to go out further, you get to the point where you will say, we can't develop any further. Because we can't maintain the roads and we don't have the monies to maintain the schools.
Well, that's why you have to grow. That's why there has to be business. That's why we have to grow. And we have to acknowledge the fact that where it's appropriate, like you said, there needs to be growth, so we do have better infrastructure and money being, but we can't just.
And I do agree with zoning, be able to put businesses where businesses are and zone so that you don't have a house and a business, and I
Right.
do agree with all of that, but I see this as a means of beginning to restrict how you live. So,
Well, I hope it accomplishes the opposite, I hope it expands how it
what you
is.
do.
Yeah. Okay, and that's an interesting kind of concept, because Portage County doesn't consist just of Ravenna and Kent. It consists of everybody north, south, east, and west, and if you look at where development's gonna occur, in order for business, they need the sewer and water. Sewer and water is in certain cities. And I think that the whole concept here is to promote Portage County, find out who we are, what we have going so far.
She has to walk out, I'm sorry.
Well, I know this encompasses one.
So then are you more of a spy at the NEFCO meeting than the chair?
Well, I told Joe Hadley that I could be both, but the bottom line, even at the NEFCO meetings, it drives me crazy is, you still have them? Is they have four counties there, right? And they don't talk about what they're doing that are positive amongst themselves. So one of my things as the chair is, I wanna hear what's good and great, you know, what's going on. However, we do have a presentation from NEUSCC tomorrow, so.
You'll see me at NAFCO tomorrow.
Okay, well, you'll see me there too.
Yeah.
But again, as the chair, I don't have any really, it's
What
just,
is their
things work.
presentation, please? Is it on fair housing again?
I don't know what it's on, to be honest with you. They just said they asked to come and present.
Why? Why do we allow them to do that? I know it's a Ford County thing that you're a chair over, but why are we allowing them to come in and promote their sustainability?
I think that, well, first off, I know you guys don't like that word, sustainability.
There's a
But
lot
I
of
think
words there.
sustainability is a very important thing. We talked about the libraries collapse and not being in Renfield anymore. The point of sustainability is so they continue on. I mean, that's the point of sustainability. I'm not sure why that's a bad buzzword, the UN 21 thing, why they use that and why people think that's bad, but I think we have to have, something left behind after we're not here for our children and our grandchildren and so on and so forth. I mean, we shouldn't just destroy our resources and not be sustainable. I just don't know why that's a bad word.
This is part of the UN initiative, correct?
This? No.
Pardon?
No.
No.
No. I didn't even know anything about that until you guys showed up last meeting.
I think the problem with the term sustainability and green is once you start using those buzzwords, the grant money starts flowing and things start happening that people don't
I
like.
think it's important to have good understanding of sustainability came after smart growth and and just list down where stuff came from, because everybody has to call something something. And you don't want to have a panic attack over a word sustainability or a word collaboration or the word grant, because that's how a lot of things actually happen. And I know when we got to this group together.
Well, that's why I'm here, and I like listening to this, because it makes me feel better about it, but I still think that sustainability and green, those are bad buzzwords, and they're gonna trigger my alert every time I hear it.
Well, the interesting thing too is
Which-
with green, you've got businesses that are becoming green. They're learning, just like God said, that, you know what, we can do things better. We can do things where not only is it gonna benefit people, but it's gonna benefit.
I think there's a mix on that. I think most of it's done right now for show, and I think, if these, super fuel vehicles that FedEx uses for delivery were working, they would be everywhere. It doesn't work, not to the scale they want. So they do a green initiative just so they can get, they can get contracts with certain companies who have to do green, so it's all big, oh, we're all green, you get money, we have pass it around, and that's how it works. There's no magic bullet there. There's not a magic bullet with a lot of this stuff that's going on.
My reason for getting involved was mainly as soon as I heard comp plan, and after what happened in Hiram and what I saw happen there, I didn't want to see it happen to the whole county, because what they did in Hiram, they passed a daggone notebook this thick, the council passed these ordinances and everything, where normally city council, village council would pass one item at a time, an item of concern, and they would deal with that particular issue. Where here what we ended up having passed in Hiram was a notebook full of ordinances and issues. And if you deter from that plan, that comprehensive plan that they put together, then there's fees and regulations, and you have to deal with the Board of Zoning Appeals and all these different restrictions. Like I said, it was like a homeowners association on steroids. And if I wanted to live under a homeowners association, I would have moved to a gated community, signed up for the homeowners association, and bought a house there. I didn't. I bought a house in Hiram because I wanted to live in a quiet village, and it was for 19 years until they decided to go with this comprehensive plan. This sounds like a totally different thing to me going on at the county level, and my concern was, and why I wanted to be involved, is because I don't want to see happen to the whole county what happened in Hiram.
Yeah, one of the things, and I want to reiterate this again then, is that we want local governments to have the control.
Right.
And this is kind of like the bigger picture, so people can see where they fit into the picture, not telling people they have to do certain things.
Yeah, they're gonna have
I would be
regulations.
concerned with creating a tool that gets used against us. Like, okay, you don't have to use this plan, but let's say NUSCC comes in and says, yeah, you have to, because you use our water resources, you now have to do this. By the way, it's your plan, you have to do it.
Well, I think that,
And don't shake your head, because I pay a stormwater runoff fee in Portage County. My sister pays a stormwater utility fee in Richfield. This stuff is going on.
Well, I think we'd have to see what the NUSC comes up with, but right now, I don't. Right now, I'd have to see what they're proposing. Right now, I'm not really comfortable with anything that they're proposing. And so, I think you'd have a mutiny if they passed some requirements that none of us agreed with. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, we have to agree with these things or say, sorry,
Well,
you can opt out.
but like I say, my sister in Richfield, they get water resources from Cuyahoga County, so now they have to, their stormwater, they pay a utility, and it's, because they well, you want your fresh water, well, now you gotta pay a stormwater.
There's a lot of dictate comes out of Akron if you are anywhere along the Cuyahoga River.
And if Richfield wanted to shove it down into the watershed, then that's against the law.
Well, thanks for coming, everybody.
Yep.
Appreciate you guys coming.